Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're digging into a viral video that makes a pretty wild claim. Getting your stolen motorcycle back from the police could actually end up costing you more than the bike is even worth. Yeah, the video lays out what it calls 3 traps that can turn a victim of theft into a victim of the system. Let's break it all down.
So the source material kicks off with this exact question, and it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? It challenges that whole idea that recovery is the end of the story. The argument is that for a lot of people, finding their stolen vehicle is just the beginning of a bureaucratic and financial nightmare. It really sets the stage for a conflict with the very people who are supposed to be helping you.
And wow, this quote from the source video, it just gets right to the heart of the matter. This is the central conflict in a nutshell. The idea that the institution you run to for justice might, in some cases, just create a whole new financial burden. A process that the video's creator bluntly calls extortion.
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the hidden costs the source claims are involved in a recovery. Then we'll get into the 3 specific traps: the admin fee ruse, the impound fees, and the so-called broker deals. And finally, we'll cover the playbook the video offers for how you can protect yourself.
You know, the source actually calls this whole thing a Batman trap. It's a reference to a situation that looks simple on the surface, but is really designed to catch you. The argument is that the whole process is set up in a way that can quickly shift, turning you from the victim of a crime into a target for fees and payments. All of a sudden, getting your own property back becomes incredibly expensive.
Now let's look at the first alleged trap. The source gives it a pretty memorable name: the cigarette money shakedown. This is all about the alleged practice of demanding small, unofficial cash payments just to get the basic paperwork started.
So here's how this supposedly works. You go to file a report, and someone asks for a little extra cash for, photocopies or gas money. The source is pretty direct about it, calling these requests total BS. And the implied threat? It's clear. If you don't pay up, your case file might just end up at the bottom of a pile somewhere, totally forgotten. The video argues this whole tactic just preys on your desperation.
So, what's the solution here? Well, the source lays out a pretty bold 3-step plan. First, just refuse to pay any of these unofficial fees. Second, and this is the absolute key, record the interaction. The video really hammers this home. Documenting the request for payment is your best defense. And finally, go public. Report it to the police's Internal Affairs Division, known as PropAm, but also blast your evidence on social media to get everyone's attention on the issue.
Okay, let's move on to the second alleged trap. This one supposedly kicks in after your vehicle has been found and is now sitting in the police impound lot. According to the source, this is where the costs can really start to go through the roof.
What's really interesting here is this term Bayah Siluman, which basically translates to phantom fees. The source alleges that once your motorcycle is impounded, these unofficial daily charges for storage or maintenance just start piling up, turning a police facility into what the video calls a loan shark's den. And as you can see, these fees can get unbelievably high. The source brings up an example where someone was hit with a 5 million rupiah charge. That's over $300 for just 1 month of storage. I mean, for a lot of bikes, that fee alone is more than the vehicle is even worth, which makes the whole recovery a massive financial loss.
So how do you deal with this? The source suggests you fight back with information. First off, do your homework. Find out the official legal rates for vehicle impoundment. Once you have that knowledge, you can negotiate hard and demand a detailed, written bill. If the final cost is still just too high, the video suggests making a tough call. Consider cutting your losses and selling the vehicle to avoid getting sucked into a debt trap.
This brings us to the third, and according to the source, the most complicated trap of them all: a negotiation where the officer who's supposedly helping you might not actually be on your side.
The source actually coins a powerful term for this: Kalo Berskeragam, which means brokers in uniform. It describes a scenario where an officer allegedly stops acting like law enforcement and instead becomes a middleman, negotiating a ransom payment between you, the victim, and the thief. This slide really breaks down where the money allegedly goes. You've got the bike's actual market price on one side and a much higher ransom price on the other. The source claims this extra money is then split between the thief and the broker. That means the victim ends up paying this massive premium just to get their own property back. It's wild.
So, the video's proposed solution here is really proactive, but you got to admit, it also sounds a bit risky. It advises victims to just reject any offer from an officer to negotiate.
Instead, it suggests you try to investigate and find the vehicle yourself. If you do locate it, the advice is to go there with all your proof of ownership and, crucially, bring other people with you for safety to reclaim your property.
So after laying out these 3 alleged traps, the source brings it all together into an overarching strategy, what it calls the Citizen's Playbook for holding the system accountable.
This quote right here really sums up the entire strategy. The core idea is that these alleged practices can only happen in the shadows, so the most powerful weapon against them is transparency and a whole lot of public attention.
So, what are the key takeaways from this playbook? Well, the source stresses that your smartphone is your #1 tool for gathering evidence. Social media is your megaphone. And yeah, you should use the official channels, but they become so much more powerful when there's public pressure. And finally, the video highlights the power of community, connecting with other victims to show this isn't just some one-off problem.
And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question posed by the source material. It argues that one person's act of recording an injustice, once it's shared and amplified, can grow from a single complaint into a real movement for change. It's a pretty compelling case for the power of hitting record and shining a bright light into the darkness.